I used a lot of kind of educating myself through the work of other people. So the first book I read when I came into this was The Beauty Myth by Naomi Wolf. And it's this kind of iconic like manifesto from the 90s about advertising and about beauty ideals and eating disorders and just like laying it all out. And I started finding more and more books like that. There are books like that on health, Health at Every Size by Linda Bacon, and Losing It by Laura Fraser, which is about the diet industry. And I kept finding all these kind of outside sources of this information that made me see that it wasn't an individual thing, that there's actual facts, there's actual empirical evidence here that this is being done to us. So I keep myself quite immersed in that. Now, I have Instagram. A lot of people make fun of this term. I like it. I have Instagram as a bit of a safe space. So my entire feed is filled with people who aren't dieting, with people who are celebrating diversity and talking about self-acceptance and self-care and mental health awareness. So I know that I always have a place to go back to, even if I go through my day being kind of bombarded with all these messages that I'm wrong and my body is wrong and I should change it. I can actually go on my phone and find a whole line of things that say the opposite. So that for me has been a good tool. For all its negatives, it has a lot of positives for me.
So you can, and anyone can, curate your social media profile so that it's a sort of positive and affirmative thing rather than, you bastard, I'll kill you.
Yeah, and I think it seems like such a simple thing that people don't take it seriously, but what we are seeing every day is having a huge effect on how we are seeing ourselves. It's becoming the lens of through which we see ourselves. And can I be a bore and mention a study?
I can't imagine how you would ever be a bore, but please.
Thanks. So one of the most kind of well-known studies about imagery and how it affects us was done in the 90s by a woman called Anne Becker, and it was she went to Fiji in 1995 and there had been no TV. The girls in Fiji had not seen beauty ideals. They had not seen, well, they didn't have TV. And then they introduced it and they brought in shows from the UK and the US and New Zealand. And within, I think it was 3 years, 74% of these girls said that they felt like they were too fat. And before that, the beauty ideal in Fiji had been strong, robust. They encouraged feasting. They loved a thick gal. And then all of a sudden, 74% of girls thought that they were too fat, and 15% were bulimic in 3 years. So I think that I mentioned that because it's such a perfect snapshot. We can't do it again because like nearly everyone's got TV now. It's such a perfect snapshot of how what we are seeing is affecting how we are seeing ourselves. So Instagram, absolutely, you should be curating your feed. You should be on a regular basis going through and thinking, is this making me feel shit about myself? If the answer is yes, why is it there?
Yeah, we've got some ability to cultivate and eliminate things that are negative, but I suppose it's easy to habitualize negative messages to the self, isn't it? To yourself, you know, culturally that feels like that's what's normal. And whilst, you know, say when I think about, say, like Hollywood films and people being beautiful, you feel like, oh no, you know, that's cool because I like things to be glamorous, but we are sort of unaware of how deeply we've been programmed when it comes to what we regard as beautiful, what we regard as acceptable, and the secondary effects of ubiquitous ideals being broadcast to us that we sort of feel that we can't live up to. It's very interesting that. It makes sense to me. Like, and I think obviously it goes like, it's excellent that you're so well versed in the particular area of body image and body positivity. But I think about it in terms of identity. Like, this is what a man is. Like, that's because, you know, like, because my journey differs from yours on in many ways. Like, you know, where I've found the facets for self punishment. Like, oh, I'm not good enough at this. This is what I should be like as a man. These are the things I should be fulfilling. You know, but like, I suppose it's good to have aspiration, but aspiration and ideals to head towards. But I suppose what has happened is we have limited those ideals, we have commodified those ideals, and we are selling people ideals that determine that people feel miserable and worthless as their point of participation with their culture.
Yeah, and I think there's really something in that about having a sense of purpose. And there are some people who have also written whole books about how this obsession with our bodies and particular thinness is kind of replacing religion a little bit, and there has lots of kind of religious connotations in it. We've sinned, we have our idols, we repent, we are chaste. There's a lot of
this.
There's a lot of that in diet culture, and I think
even fasting, and earlier you said there was a sort of a euphoria to the fasting and a sort of a sense of connection, because like one of my underlying beliefs, and I'm sorry if you've not entirely finished your point, is that all of the problems not all, but all the problems in society is because we've lost our connection to a deep truth. Ideas of oneness, of innate beauty, of our function is communal and collective to love one another, that these ideas are so sort of lost and swamped in individualistic, consumerist, materialistic ideas that we've got no connection to them. So we have to fortify and falsify these ideas wherever we can, or anything that emulates them, mimics them, mirrors them, we cling to because it somehow resonates with us on a level that we can't even quite remember because our culture hasn't acknowledged those principles for so long.